Little progress bar.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. The session should have started. We'll just do a quick sound check. If somebody could just say, hi, I can hear you. That would be great. In the chat there. I assume people can hear us, but it's always nice to double check to find out people can indeed hear us.
We can hear you.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Okay, loud and clear. Awesome. So thanks for attending Co-Creating Strategy with your team so they buy it, love it, and own it. We have with us here Terri. She is the owner and lead consultant at Virago Labs. I'll let her continue with her own introduction. I'll just do a little bit of preface for the session as well. So obviously feel free to chat throughout the presentation, comment on what's happening here. We do have Q&A there as well. So on the Q&A tab, feel free to seed questions in there, and Terri will do her best to tackle these throughout the presentation. We will have some polls coming up in that poll channel, which we'll cue you for as well. But yes, without further ado, I'll leave it to Terri to continue with that introduction there.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Welcome, everybody, on this rainy for us here in Seattle Friday afternoon. I'm going to cover a little bit of logistics, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about me, and then we'll dive in. I'm probably going to take the whole 50 minutes. Got a lot of things that I want to share with you, but I'm going to try to make that as interactive as possible. The first thing is I'm going super low tech. We're going to be using this lovely whiteboard over here. What I have found in my work is that we're burnt out, and context switching between me and a deck, it causes even more burnout. So I'm going low tech. I'm going to be writing on this whiteboard. Hopefully you can get a good sense of it. I have horrendous writing, and so don't worry if you don't get every possible word, because I'm going to give you a PDF with a beautiful, everything I put up here in that PDF at the end. And you might say, why don't you just give me the PDF, Terri? Well, same thing. Like, you are going to absorb this information so much more if we go along together. And you can take notes still, because that'll help you absorb it as well. We're going to give this, hopefully keep this as like low back and forth switching as possible, so that you get into your Friday refreshed, because I think this is the last presentation of the day. I am going to be using polls. And the funny thing is, the polls are a little bit, I'm delayed. I'm 15 seconds delayed, but the polls are not. And Paul's going to be sending the polls off to you. So you may see a poll show up before I say, hey, this is what the poll is. And all of the polls are 1 through 7. So 1 through 7, 1 being low / bad, 7 being high / great. So let's do a test. Paul, can you give us a poll? And let's see how you're doing on this Friday afternoon. What's your energy like? So 1 is low. It's Friday. I want the week to be over. I'm done. It's rainy. I want sunshine. 7 is high energy. I'm ready for the weekend. Let's go, let's go, let's go. So let's see how you're feeling this afternoon. So that poll is open. And hopefully I can see the results. This is a little bit of a test for me too. And I'm going to put my number in as a 4.
Poll is open. We have around 30 people have entered so far. Once we can see all the results and double checking. Can you see the results as they're coming in as well there, Terri?
Perfect. I can. Awesome. Hope everybody else as well can see the results. Awesome. So we've got a lot of folks in the 5 range. Some in the 6, 20% in the 7, and a few people down low, 1 and 2, 3. That's totally okay. Right now there's a lot going on in the world for all of us, so we're glad you're here, even though you're feeling a little bit off. We're glad that you're able to make it here anyways, and hopefully we'll give you some things to get excited about. And if not, that's all right. Your questions, as Paul said. I'm going to be trying to pay attention to the Q&A. We've got a full session, but I want to try to make sure I'm answering your questions. So put your questions in there, and I'm going to be watching. And then finally, I will probably put some questions in the chat as well. So I'll ask a question out loud, and then you can answer in the chat. So my first question for you is, what are you looking forward to about this presentation, given what you know today? So I'm going to give you a few minutes, as I said, a little bit delayed, but I want to hear, like, what were you hoping to get out of the session that made you tune in and join us today? All right, well, you guys are putting that out. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. So as Paul said, I'm the owner and lead consultant of Virago Labs, but I didn't always own my own business. I started off in corporate, got into product management right out of college, and spent 15 years in product strategy and management, climbing the product management ladder. I was a director of product management at Capital One, and I was the director of digital web at Primera. So both at Capital One and Primera, leading large product management teams, really helping them do what I'm going to show you how to do today. And then I really took that work into my own business. And what I do today is I do product strategy and culture consulting for product and tech teams and startups. And I help these teams co-create their strategy and culture. And I use facilitation, I use training, I use research. I'm a big advocate of consumer research, and then I coach as well. And I've started to see some of your answers, building engagement to co-create, awesome. We're definitely going to talk about that. Highlighting different opportunities to co-create, fantastic. Bringing back home of this practice to my organization, so awesome. We are going to cover so many of those things today. Teamwork and collaboration tips. Yeah, co-creation and collaboration, there's a lot of overlap, and hopefully you can start to see some of the differences today as well. So I've already been giving you tips, if you haven't noticed already. Asking people, like, how are you doing? As a facilitator, checking in where people are so that you can absorb that into your time together is a tip. If you go into a strategy session you're facilitating and everyone's feeling really, really down, you need to include that. You need to make sure that you're supporting people in that. Same if people are super excited and raring to go and you have a really slow agenda, that might not work. So touching base, knowing where people are. This 1 through 7 rating is probably one of the biggest tools that I use. It's just a great way to quantify feelings. Even something like, do you like this? 1 through 7. We will get to like purpose statement, mission statement. I'll facilitate co-creation of that. And then 1 through 7, how do you feel about this? People are low. 2, 3, okay, there's more work to be done here. So giving you tips all along the way. So I go into teams to help co-create strategy. And, normally when I'm going in, I say, like, how do you feel about your strategy today? 1 through 7. And the numbers tend to be down in the 2, 3, 4 buckets. My goal is to get them to a 6 bucket. At 7, great if you can get there, but nobody's perfect. And so I'm trying to get to like 6. Every now and then we end up still with like 5, 5.5, but the goal is really 6 out of 7. And the reason the scores start off so low is that team members are constantly complaining, I don't know the strategy. And leaders get really, really annoyed by this. And they're like, I created this 100-page deck and I gave them a 2-hour presentation. Well, why don't they get it? Right? Or even if you're in a narrative culture, for example, you wrote a 20-page narrative and you get their feedback on it. And they read it and still they either, don't remember it. They don't think it's realistic. And it's a really, really frustrating thing for leaders who are in charge of strategy. The second type of a confusion I see is when there's maybe a new leader, new product manager, or a new space that you're trying to build into, and you're in charge of this strategy, and yet there's almost like an imposter syndrome. I don't have enough information. How can I be in charge of putting together this strategy? Or how can we build into this new market? I don't have enough information. I don't know enough about this space. I don't know enough about this product. I don't know enough about our company. And the structure that I'm going to be sharing with you today really solves those two types of confusion. So Paul, can you put another poll out for us as well? 1 through 7, how do you feel about your organization strategy today? And if you are currently job searching, great, you can use a past company, the last company you were at. 1 through 7, low, I didn't understand it, I didn't buy it, I didn't own it. 7, I understood it, I loved it, I own it. And let's see where you are either in your companies today or in the last company you were at. Okay, we'll give you a second. So while you guys are completing that, I want to tell you that what I've learned in doing this work is that you really have to have certain components to get people to understand it, love it, and engage it, carry it like it was their own. And if these components don't exist, then people aren't going to feel that way, right? And the more components you have, the higher the likelihood that you're going to get people saying, yeah, 6, 7, I really get this strategy. All right, so for this poll, lots of folks in the middle, 4, 5. Those in the 5 range, I think 5, okay, 5's pretty good. Those in the 4, 3, 2, there's probably a fair amount of opportunity for your organization in improving both the understanding, the engagement with, and the ownership of their strategy. All right, so I'm going to give you a structure that I'm going to use in this talk. I'm going to be covering the why, how, what, when, and who of strategy co-creation. And there's 3 components that I'm going to be sharing: strategy facilitation, which is the how; strategy intention and strategic planning, which is going to be in the what; and then I'll talk to the when and the who at the end, like after I've given you these frameworks. But first, why, and I saw these in the chat, so I think you guys are already thinking about it. But why strategy co-creation? Why not, send that brilliant person into a room writing that 20-page narrative and come out, yes, look at me. And I think so often there is this story of the lone wolf strategic visionary. And really, for most people and most teams, strategy is a team sport. It's better together. Right? All of the different specialists that support a product, from sales to design to data science to engineering, they're all critical. And when they're working in silos, your strategy suffers. And it's really the connection of all the dots across those silos that makes a strategy compelling. And then the second, you all know this, there's lots of data around this, that diversity of thought, expertise, and backgrounds breeds innovation, right? You cannot, I really just don't think that lone wolf by themselves create something that's truly innovative, because it is, what I have found, it's that person sitting at their desk, talking to customers, or reviewing defect queues, or really understanding the market, doing consumer research. It takes all of them to create something that's truly innovative. And the more they can be a part of the process, the better your strategy is, and the more they get it and they run with it, right? And you're not at risk that, oh yeah, we created this great strategy, no one's using it, they're all just doing their own thing. All right, so that's a little bit of the why. I'm going to see if there's no questions yet. Okay, awesome. All right, we're going to go to the how, strategic facilitation. So truthfully, I could spend a whole session on strategic facilitation. I'm a big believer in facilitation as a strategic skill, but I'm not. So I'm going to give you just a little piece so then you can see how the facilitation works in a strategic framework. So 4 steps to strategic facilitation, starting with intention. And now these steps are not linear, right? They all work in concert. The first step, the intention, is the fuzzy landscape, the why. We all know why is important. And it's not just that you understand the why, but that the team understands the why as well. Now, normally we start with a pretty fuzzy why. You know, I've got a goal, I've got a hypothesis, I've got a problem, I've got an opportunity. And it's this fuzzy intention. Everybody has to buy off on this fuzzy intention before you can really dive in. So getting them grounded in the landscape and the why. The next step is structure. I am so passionate about this. This fuzzy intention, it's chaos. We live in a world of chaos and constant change. And if we aren't providing structure, there's no way for the team to move through it. And so the structure is where we find framework. I'm going to talk about some of those frameworks today, like design thinking and lean canvas. These frameworks help us structure chaos and move through it to create a plan. It allows us to pull up and look at the forest view, right? Look at the forest as a whole. Now, one of the things with frameworks, I'm a big believer in them, but we must never forget that frameworks and structure are in chaos. They're never perfect. There's no perfect framework. I've created tons of frameworks for the work that I do. Every client I'm a part of, I make changes to that framework to adapt to them. Because their world, I can never understand all of it, right? And so helping framework, getting them to buy off on the framework, helping me understand where their organization needs a different framework. We have to adapt for the chaos that we find. The next is discovery. This is such a place where product managers love. Right, this is all the trees, all the little trees in here. Oh, so many trees. Data and information and analytics and analysis and research, talking to customers, understanding, really playing in all of that chaos and information. Now, if you have a structure to move through it, there's actually places, okay, it's not just this overwhelm or but no, you're actually completing a framework, a structure, so that we can make sense of all of this information. Many times I start with an intention and a structure, and then when we get to discovery, we have to adapt. Oh, we're actually a lot clearer on our intention now. That's become a lot clearer. And we realize our initial structure, it doesn't work. It needs to be adapted, right, for what we cover in discovery. And as I said, you're going through this whole process. It's not linear. You're doing this all along the way. All right, so intention, the landscape and the why, the structure, the forest and frameworks, discovery, the trees and the data, and then finally the story, which is the path. It's a path through this chaos. This is the meaning, right? This is the why and this is the meaning. What do we make of this? And I always make the story a co-creative process. I might offer something like, this is what I'm taking away from this. This is the story I'm telling. Do you agree with that? 1 through 7. No, I don't agree with that. This is what I think the story is. And it's this ongoing discussion. All right. I don't think there is a way to take it off, Paul. I'm sorry, y'all. Am I really small? As I said, I will share this at the end. I did see your question, Mallory. And I'm just going to take a look here and look at the other questions before I move on. When you're planning with introverts and extroverts, how do you approve inclusive planning with strategy? You know, I'm not going to talk about that explicitly. I think there are lots of ways to engage people in different ways, right? And you should. If I have time at the end, Gordon, I'll answer that a little bit more. All right, so that's the strategic facilitation. So I'd love to see, let's do a poll, Paul. How well do you think you facilitate today?
So I'm going to add in the question. There's a comment to add that in here. I'll mention, so normally as a moderator, I disappear on the screen, so I apologize if I'm showing there as a blank during this, but there is a change layout button at the very top. If you do that, that will make it larger for Terri. But yeah, normally on the other presentations, I have been able to disappear as a moderator, so I apologize for that. But I'll add in the question in this Q&A or in the poll, as other people have mentioned, they look back at the results and want to know, remember what it was that they answered. So what is I'll just quickly type in the question here as well. And what is the question there, please? And I'll add that in for this poll here quickly.
So the question is, how well do you think you facilitate? So what's your facilitation skills like today? Given just this little bit of a framework I've shared around attention, structure, discovery, and story, how well do you think you facilitate today? Thanks, Paul.
Okay, so I have that in here, so I will launch this poll here. Perfecto.
Cool. I have to answer in order for me to see it. Okay. All right, starting to come in there. 2 people. Let's give it a few more seconds. All right, so all across the board. Some people who think they're really great. That's awesome. Hopefully, I can still give you a few new ideas. But lots of people in those middle ranges. So I'm going to be covering this facilitation piece as I talk about this piece. The what. How I've covered, but I promise I'm not done. I'm going to give you lots of structures to think about. I'm going to share more about story at the end, but I'm going to go into the what of strategic facilitation, the intention and the planning. All right. So I mentioned there's components that have to exist in a strategy in order for people to say, yeah, I got it, I love it, I want it, it's mine, right? And there's about 5 of them. And the strategic intention is actually the first one. And I think I'm gonna put them all out, and then I'll go through each one. So purpose, values, vision. So often when we say strategy, I think lots of people think, oh, we're gonna do this. And I'm gonna talk more about that. And then strategic planning, past, present, future. And there's other components in here that I'll get to. All right, so we're going to start at the top. Strategic intention. This is the North Star. And there's other pieces of this. I'm particularly fond of mission as well. What's the difference between purpose and missions? It can get very semantical. But I think what's important here is, why do you exist? This is the ultimate why. Right? Why does your product exist? Why does your organization exist? Why does your team exist? What is the meaning or value or impact that you're trying to create in the world? Right? So the why, what value are you trying to create in the world? And then your values, these are your ways of being, who you want to be as you go about achieving your purpose. Right? And I'm very, very fond of product teams having values for their customer experience. So for example, a value around transparency, that no matter what we are going to do in our product experience, we are always going to be transparent with our customers. And then finally, the vision. This is what will the world look like one day if we accomplish our purpose and live out our values. Right? And there's a lot of focus here on vision, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But it's this laying out, okay, what are customers, what's the market going to say? What's the impact we're going to have on people if we are able to, as I said, carry out our purpose and live out our values? And so I really call this whole piece the North Star. And the reason it's a strategic intention is because it's actually devoid of any type of plan, right? And what's great about having why this is so important is this is where inspiration. We are a human creature who loves meaning and loves doing work we believe is meaningful and that's adding value to people. And this is where that comes from. Giving people yes, we're doing something good here. We're working towards a vision that's better than the world is today. Now, there can be some downsides in here. One of the things, a North Star can actually be very demotivating if it's not in any way connected to the strategic plan. So sometimes I go into organizations and they've got the North Star, but it's it exists up here in La La Land, and it has absolutely nothing to do with their day-to-day reality. And that is actually super demotivating for people. You're actually, I think, if this is going to happen, you're better off not having a North Star because it feels fake, it feels disingenuous. There has to be this connection. Now you may say, okay, Terri, but my team already has, my organization already has them.
Right. Can I just ask a quick
Paul,
question?
You got something?
Checking with the organizer, it seems like one way, if it's taking up half the screen when I'm in here, but if I drop out of this session, which then will leave you coordinating the polls, everyone will have the full screen and sort of half of me. Would it be okay if I drop out? We haven't found a way to do that, but okay. Thanks so much. And this will be our interim fix. Thank you so much, Terri, for putting there. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. All right, let's see what happens when Paul goes. Hopefully you can see me a ton better. He's just frozen for me there. Oh, there he goes. Yay! I know I'm bigger for me. Hope I'm bigger for you. So I will say I'm not probably watching the chat as well as Paul is. I have one of my coworkers here. So Rosie, if there's something in the chat I really need to see, please text me. Okay. All right, onward. So what I was saying is, okay, Terri, this already exists. So what am I supposed to do? Well, there's a way you can make it actionable. Like let's have a workshop where we spend time talking about our purpose and our values and our vision and what it means for our current day reality, right? What it means for our current day reality. Not just, okay, this is the stuff, where are we living up to this? I'll actually do 1 through 7 ratings here. How well are we currently living out our purpose? 1 through 7, how well are we living out each of our values? And one of the things you can do is track with your team the improvement. So my organization, we have values. We have about 5 of them that we currently manage. And every month, every person rates 1 through 7 how well we're doing living our values. Some months are better than others. And we get to say, okay, this value really low, 2 out of 7. What did we do? What did we do wrong? Like, how do we improve for next month? Right? I'm so glad everybody can see. Yay. I practiced this, but I didn't practice with Paul. Right, our North Star. And as I said, the importance of the North Star is creating a strategy that is inspiring and meaningful. All right, so moving on, we are going to go right here to the present. This piece is so important. So in the present, and I'm just pulling up here, so often I go into teams and I say, okay, we're going to spend some time on the current state. And we're on the same page. Of course, duh, we know what's happening in the present, but so often across silos, people have different realities, right? Completely different realities. And you can definitely see this across discipline teams. For example, like engineering is shipping like crazy and they're like, yeah, high five, we're like making all these improvements. And sales is like, yeah, sales is down 25%. And it's not that they're not wrong, but they probably have a very different feeling about how things are going across those different silos. And your job as a product manager is to get everybody on the same page about the present. So I'm a really, really big believer and user of the design thinking framework, where really your product strategy lives here at the center of customer needs, business needs, and the technology platforms to support it. So in the present, when I go into a team, I will spend time here saying, okay, what's your target customer like? How well is your offer of value resonating with them? What's their satisfaction like? Looking at the business, right? What's revenue like? What's your cost drivers? And then finally, like the technology, speed to market, health of the platform, defects. And you don't really get on the same page about your current reality of your product unless you're connecting across all of these. Ooh, I got a little funny noise. All right. So here's one of the frameworks I use, and as I said, I've got an assessment across all of these, getting everybody on the same page. I'm also, there's a few other things here that organizations do already that are a way to get on the same page about the present. In data-driven cultures where you're doing either a weekly business review or a monthly business review, where you're reviewing all your metrics and your key performance indicators, this is a way to get grounded in the present. Now, it's not enough just to like, oh, here's some data. No, you actually have to say, okay, here's some data about our key performance indicators. What does that mean? What does that mean for us in the present? How does that relate to how our product is doing, how it's performing, how our customers feel about it? And the more you can, okay, here's data. Now let's have a conversation about that meaning. The more you get on the same page about the present. Yeah, I think that the last framework that I do here is an oldie but a goodie. It's just the really classic SWOT. And I always do a certain amount of like data analytical metric driven analysis before we do a SWOT analysis. But then your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats, getting on the same page about what those are is going to allow you to chart a course to your future that you're all bought into. But you have to spend the time here. I would say if there's any particular section on here that I spend the most time in, it is the present. Because if you do not agree on the present, you're never going to agree on the other things. I'm just extending here because I want to make sure I'm not missing anything in the chat. No, I'm good. All right, let me take a quick look at the chat. Okay, great. So there's definitely some pieces similar. Gordon and Grace, I'm going to answer your questions when we get to the who, okay? All right. Awesome. So what does grounding in the present do? And I've actually said the word. It grounds people in your strategy. Grounded. It has a grounded, your strategy has a grounded feel. I'm sure you all have had a strategy presented to you in the past, maybe an executive at your organization, where you're like, okay, this has nothing to do with our present reality, right? They've charted out this amazing vision or these massive goals, and they seem so far from where we are today that this is just fluffy make-believe. So that's what grounding in the present does. It grounds your strategy in reality. And I can just not state how important this is. So let's do a quick poll again. 1 through 7. How much time does your organization spend grounding in the present? How well do you think your product is aligned across all of the different silos, teams, and specialists who support your product? Or is sales over there saying, everything's awesome? And tech's like, yeah, we got a bajillion defects. Is everybody on the same page? All right, I'm gonna give you a few seconds to let that come through. Did I launch a poll? I think I did, yeah. Okay, great. So really also just really across the board. Which is not so far, right? Yeah, so I'm not putting the headings in like Paul. You will see the poll and then I will tell you what the poll is. I'll try for the next one. Yeah, Nicole, thank you. Yeah, since I'm running out of my own, I'm not putting the question in the header. And remember, because I'm 15 seconds delayed, you will see the poll and then probably 15 seconds later, I will tell you what the poll is. Technical things, right? All right. We're going to go now to the past. Now, as a country, as people, we're very future focused. Where are we going? Like, let's get there, right? And I would say I am so guilty of this. But this aspect of my framework didn't exist in the past, right? It's something I actually added over the last year. And what I have found is, especially for organizations that have been around for a long time, where it's there's a there's a big hole, right? There's like a very far hill to climb to get to their vision. So I work a lot in finance, in healthcare, in government, very complicated customer bases, lots of compliance, very complicated technical stacks. And there's this feeling like, God, are we ever going to get to our vision? And so what I have found is that spending time on the past, right, where you came from, and the progress that has been made to get you to the present. And this can also be the case even if the present isn't good. Spending time on progress, accomplishments that the team has spent time on, what this does is it creates belief. Belief in the ability of the team, right? Belief in the ability of the product, of the organization. And as I said, this piece is critical for everybody. It's nice to, oh yeah, look at what we've done. Like, even though we've got a long way to go, look at what we've done. We've made progress. And I don't know why, but for so much, when we're so caught here, we really struggle to see this. We really struggle to see the progress. And it's not until it's like all laid out, like, oh, look at where we were a year ago and look at what we've done. Like, even though we've still got a lot to work through, we have a lot of opportunities, like we've made progress and we are capable of making progress. This belief in themselves, that's so critical to believing a strategy. You can't believe the future unless you a little bit believe the past, right? So a new addition for me, and one that I've just found has been so, so important to getting teams to be like, yes, I'm ready to climb that next mountain. We've climbed a mountain before, so I know we can climb this mountain again. Okay, let's get to future. So what I tend to find is if you've done a good job here, laying out your future comes out pretty easily. And there may be lots of questions. So for example, last year I worked with a team where the target customer was really squishy. It was a startup, and they realized that their target customer was a little bit too broad, and it was creating a lot of issues within their strategy. And so their future was a really defined target customer. Now I'm very, this future can include answering of questions or dealing with threats, managing or capitalizing on opportunities that you find here. And the framework I'm very fond of here is OKRs. Objectives and key results. What I like, if you've never heard of OKRs, I just so recommend that you go do some research on it. What is the objective? What's the goal we're trying to achieve? And then what are all the key results, the SMART goal results that are going to tell us we achieved it? Sometimes like the data, the results by itself, it doesn't really say, okay, this is what we were trying to accomplish. And there's a real grounding that happens by using this type of structure. So the last thing I want to say about goals here in this future, sometimes I feel like people are like, these need to be really aggressive, right? In order for this to be inspiring, people should like not even know how they're going to get there. And I just really don't believe that. By grounding in the future, I believe these goals should be realistic. It's not that they shouldn't also be challenging, but if people are like, given our present reality, I have no idea how we're going to achieve that. There's something missing, right? And so being realistic, you should see how your future, these goals are eventually going to get you to your vision. It should be the first step towards your vision. All right. So last piece is the plan. This is where product managers play, right? Road mapping, prioritization. Now, normally you have hypotheses, right? You have hypotheses about how you're going to get from your present to your future. This is the place to use design thinking. How might we do X, Y, and Z, right? From there, you have tests. Okay, let's get into an agile framework, right? Or a lean startup where we are testing and learning our way. Strategic planning is in no way a waterfall methodology. Like, no way. You entirely need to test and learn your way in here. So now you've got these tests, you can use work stack ranks to prioritize them, all eventually leading into a roadmap. And I think you all as product managers may know a lot about this particular section. But what I'm here to tell you is this particular section is so hard. You can't do this unless you've grounded everybody and everything else. Because then you can see that your plan is attainable. And you've got a strategy. Okay, it's inspiring. I believe as a team we can do it. It's grounded in reality. There's a realistic future that we're working towards. And we have a plan that we are testing and learning into that future. It all comes together. When I go in and I'm facilitating workshops around this, I'm normally spending at least a full workshop here in the present and the past. I normally do these together. A full workshop here, a full workshop here, and then I do a full workshop here, but this is ongoing, right? This is just to make sure that the practices are right? That you've got a process of coming up with new ideas, that you've got a process for testing your hypotheses, that you've got a process for prioritization, that you've got a process for all those things, because this is always ongoing. Okay, so we have covered the what now. Woohoo! I'm going to try to leave 5 minutes for questions, so I'm going to fly here a little bit. So when are you covering this? When are you doing this process? So, if there is something that has happened in the present, I'm looking at you, COVID, that just like blows up everything, it's a good time to go through this, right? Something massive has happened in the present and we have to completely rethink our roadmap and what we were doing. Sometimes you even have to completely, if it's a massive pivot for a startup, you might have to completely rethink your purpose. So a massive event in the present could drive this. Otherwise, what I advocate for is that you pick some assessment window that makes sense given the size of your organization. A small window might relook at this every monthly or quarterly, where maybe a medium-sized organization, like quarterly or every 6 months, where a larger organization, you really maybe have a strategic planning process once a year. And you can keep that. You should be always checking in, because this spot here is always changing, right? And that's where you as the product manager, you hold this and you're paying attention, like what's happening in the present? Do we need to reassess any of this? Are we making progress? Like, oh no, we keep going backwards. We need to reassess. And so as the product manager, you're paying attention for that. Hopefully that helped. All right, okay. I want to cover the who. So the more diverse the perspective, the better. I just really, really believe that if you've got a room of all senior people, like all executives or all people in product or all people in sales, like you are failing your strategy. You can have different workshops getting perspectives from different people, like let's do a sales workshop and let's do a design workshop or an engineering. But as I said, the more people you can involve in the strategy, the better your strategy is going to be and the more likely they are to see this and feel it. And then I want to talk about who you are, right? Who you are as a person who holds this. So you've got to be really present. We are so future focused. If we're just living in the future, you've got to pay attention, like what's happening here in the present? What's happening with my team? How are they feeling? Are they rolling? Oh, everybody is lost. Oh no. Same with the customer, just like that pulse on the customer, the pulse on finances, the pulse on that technical health, just constantly being present. The second is being open. We have value, and I'm going to talk about that, but we don't, like being open and realizing that you don't know everything. And when you think you know everything, you are failing your team. You can't fake collaboration, right? You have to fundamentally believe, I have ideas, but my ideas, they're going to be better when they're pushed up against other people's ideas. And that person sitting in that corner over there, they have a great idea and I want to know about it. And just this openness to everything that's happening here and your openness to your team, realizing that every single person in your team has something to add to this strategy. And your job as the product manager is to find it. Finally, I think that it is connected to yourself and your value, and then connected to the value of everybody on your team. And I've kind of already talked about that. But you don't have to know everything to hold this process, right? But you can know that you offer really unique skills. The skills to listen so deeply to what is happening. Critical and creative thinking. Those connecting of the dots. I mean, going back to this, like your ability to pull up and look at the forest and look at all this and saying, oh, I see. Oh, I see how someone's saying something here and it relates to here. I see that, what someone is telling me in sales and what that engineering team, oh, I just completely, I see the connection. Let's get those people talking to each other. And then I said, connected to your team, that each and every single person adds value. And on with that, on the note about like, how do you manage different people? How do you support different people? Yeah, as a facilitator, your job, there's no bad or there's no good. There's no like, oh, extroversion is right, introversion is not. That's just like fundamentally false. Being able to be with everybody, like everybody has value in this process. How can I help you be involved in this? Do you need time? Do you want to pre-read? Time to think about it, right? Time to think about it ahead of time. I hadn't planned on sharing this, but I do tons and tons of different ways for people to facilitate. I love breakouts. Most people, like even if you have 10 people in the room, they can't have a discussion. And so how do you get people into small groups? I consider myself an extrovert, but I do way better. Okay, I'm going to talk to one person and we're going to wrangle this out and then we're going to share with the broader group. And you give them choice in how you share. You can write that, you can write a narrative, you can draw a design, you can whiteboard, you can just speak. Choices, give people choices, right? Empower them, listen to them. That's how you include as many people as possible. All right, I got 3 minutes left. I want to leave you with a few things. So I promised you a PDF. Let me get that for you. And I have it right here, rearing to go. Are you there? Yeah. All right. So here's this on a page. Right? This is a story in a way. I've structured it for you and I'm sharing it with you in a story that you can carry with you and take. And that's exactly what you can also do with your strategy. So you've got the pieces here, strategic facilitation on the top, strategic intention, strategic planning, it's all there. And then I also wanted to give you just an example. Can't give you a real company, but it's an example page. I do believe in like a strategy on a page. These are living, breathing documents. They should not ever be static, going back to your reassessing. But as people, we can only hold so much in our brain, right? We can only hold so much. So where you can have something that people can have on their background, you can bring it up in every meeting, you can point back to it. It's so important. It's so important. So this is an example of one of the things. And there's no strategy on the page that's like, oh, this is the perfect framework. Every single strategy works different, right? And I mean, I will say I have cultures that I work with that are PowerPoint cultures. Okay, let's do a PowerPoint. No biggie. Narrative cultures, right? Narrative cultures, and you do the writing. I can go back to the first PDF. Yeah, and I'm going to put this in my bio. So this document that I'm sharing right now, if you go find my bio, you'll be able to grab it. The last thing that I just want to offer you all is how you can connect with me. So I have set aside 10, 15-minute slots. Oh, it doesn't let me. Hey, Rosie, can you add the Calendly to the link? It won't, for some reason, it won't let me write in the chat. So I have 10, 15-minute slots. If Rosie's not able to add them, you can find my email at the bottom of the PDF. The PDF will be in my bio. It'll be next to it. It's not there yet because I thought you would be able to take this, but it sounds like you can't. And I've got, as I said, let's take 15 minutes. Let's talk about what this could look like in your organization and what you need to do in order to be able to facilitate it. Anything else? I'm gonna be in 10 minutes, I'm gonna go to the networking event. So if you plan to be at the networking event, it is random, but maybe we'll get together, and I'd love to hear what you thought of my presentation. And we've got like 1 minute left. Let me just quickly scan the questions. How do you work with large organizations like that and to include as many people as possible? Yeah, you know, if I had my way, I would go up and down. Like start with the executives, head down to the team. What do you think of these things? Then head back up. You know, obviously not everybody has like the budget for me to support that. And so I do end up doing like, okay, working with an executive team, creating a strategy. But then what I advocate for and what I also help do is road shows. And it's not just like roadshow and I'm like showing you the one pager and it's like, here's the strategy. No, I actually go and there's modules on each and every component. Like, let's talk about this vision. What does this vision mean for your organization? What ideas do you have about how you could bring this vision to life? And they're active participation. People, I mean, even this session, right? I'm just talking at you for 50 minutes. I bet you'll retain maybe 10%. You know, I try my best to make it interactive, but in an ideal world, you would be talking about this. You would be doing this. That's how people retain. That's how people understand. And so that's what you got to get them doing. Like, what does this mean for me? What ideas do I have about it? What do I think about it? Do I like this vision? Do I hate this vision? So all of those things. All right, yes, Sandy, the bio does not have the PDF, but I will go put it there right now. I thought you'd be able to get this PDF, and it looks like no. So please connect with me on LinkedIn. Please shoot me an email. Please, if you're interested in chatting for 15 minutes, set up, you take one of my 10 Calendly invites, and hopefully I'll see you at the networking event as well. And I thank you so much. Thanks so much for attending here today. I hope you found something useful. I really, there's just nothing I believe more than that strategy should be a team sport, and how hopefully I've given you some ways to make that possible in your organizations. All right, yes, connect with me on LinkedIn. So thank you so much, everybody. You can head back to the main stage in order to get some of the giveaways that are happening right now. And then networking at 2 o'clock. Go meet some of your fellow attendees and maybe me as well. Thanks, everybody.